Hello everyone, my name is George and I'm here with my associates Jessica and Joe, and together we are GatorTec. What I want to do is go over a quick organizational breakdown of our corporation to give you a better understanding. Jessica Goldberg, she is our president and overall leader, as well as the vice president of marketing. Joel Soule is the vice president of accounting and finance, dealing with facts and figures, and the vice president of marketing research. And I myself, George, I am the vice president of sales management and manufacturing. Overall, look at our mission statement here at GatorTec. We want to be the most successful computer company in the world at delivering the best customer experience in the markets we serve. We will meet customer expectations of high quality products, premium technology, competitive pricing, superior and excellent service, as well as support, flexible customization capability, and social responsibility, obviously keeping the community in our minds when making any kind of business decision. Our original strategy when we first started out, we wanted to target the markets of Cost Cutter, which is our cost leader line, as well as the Workhorse, which is aimed toward the business professional spectrum. We want to focus on large, highly competitive segments, as well as geographic markets, which are in the middle of the cost size continuum. We also wanted to focus on geographic markets which minimize distribution costs, keeping them low, build a market position and defend it, and once we took the lead, we were going to do everything in our power to keep it. Our original strategy continued a little bit more on that note. Want to be a fast follower and imitate smart competitive moves. We felt that the cost outweighed the benefits of the first mover advantage, resulting in being a fast follower. We wanted to attack competition on their home ground, as well as be a cost leader. And having such low cost, we wanted to be a low price provider in the market. So with low cost and low price, it still allowed us to have a pretty efficient profit margin. We wanted to be the high service provider in the market, and we decided to put our manufacturing plant in Toronto, Canada, for the cost per unit ship was extremely attractive, as well as the production cost index. I'm going to hand it over to Joe, and he's going to give us a little overview of our operations by quarter.
Alright, so we're going to start off in quarter 3 because that's when we really started making brands and selling products. Our sales offices for quarter 3 were Toronto and London. We picked Toronto because it was close to our factory, and we picked London because it had a high market for our Cost Cutter brand. Even though the cost was pretty high for London, we had the money at the beginning to do that. Our brands available for sale were the Horizon, which was our Cost Cutter brand, and the Stallion, which was our Workhorse brand, and we had 8 employees. Our quarter 3 brand judgment results, for Horizon, we had a 74, which doesn't seem that high, but it was actually the top of the Cost Cutter brand. By quarter 5, our sales offices were in Toronto, London, New York, Chicago, Montreal, Sao Paulo, Berlin, Tianjin, and Beijing. That was 9 offices at that point. Our brands available for sale were still the Horizon for our Cost Cutter brand, and we improved our Stallion, and we created the Stallion Pro, which is our new Workhorse brand. We had 33 employees at this point, and the Stallion Pro for that quarter was rated at a 75, which was second in the Workhorse segment. By quarter 8, we had 18 offices open. Our brands available for sale were the Horizon Pro, which was our improved Cost Cutter brand for this quarter, the Stallion Pro 2.0, Stallion Pro 3.0, which was an improvement supposed to be an improvement over the Stallion Pro 2.0, and those were our Workhorse brands. And then we actually branched out into the Traveler brand with a Seagull product, and we had 231 employees at this time. And as you can see, the Seagull, which is our Traveler brand, was rated at a 79, which wasn't very high, but we attribute that to it just being introduced into the Traveler segment, and some of the other competitors had already been there, so they knew their way around. We also didn't have as much R&D as we would have liked at this point, which didn't allow us to raise our rating very high. By quarter 10, we had all 20 offices open. Our brands available for sale were the Verizon Pro, which was still our cost cutter brand, Stallion Pro 2.0, and then we upgraded Stallion Pro 3.0 because it really just didn't work out very well. The rating was way lower than the previous brand. And so we upgraded that to the Stallion Pro 4.0. And we had the Seagull 3.0, which was our upgrade for the Traveler brand. And we had 520 employees. Due to our extensive R&D in quarter 9, we were able to make our Seagull 3.0, which is our Traveler brand, 100 in the Traveler segment, which was the top brand, and that actually allowed us to get the overall market share, allowed us to be the overall market share leader by quarter 10. Some of the significant issues that we faced in quarter 3, we spent way too much money improving changeover. Our R&D expense was $500,000 when it's suggested to be around $200,000 to $300,000. And so this $200,000 to $300 expense basically didn't allow us to expand as much as we would have liked to at the beginning. $500,000 doesn't seem like that much in the long run, but at the beginning of our simulation, we really didn't have that much money. The budget constraints, which goes back to this R&D expense that we did in quarter 3, and also just our overall budget constraints that we faced throughout the entire simulation. In quarter 8, Stallion Pro 3.0 was highly unsuccessful, and we spent a lot of money on producing that and lost a lot of money on it. We also had to invest money into Stallion Pro 4.0 to improve that, which goes back to the budget constraints that we had the whole time. And we invested way too much in local advertising and not enough in regional. We basically spent twice as much in local advertising as we did in regional in almost every quarter except for the last few quarters. And we basically just spent way too much on advertising in general. Our operating capacity was too low to keep up with demand. Towards the end of the simulation, our demand skyrocketed, and we just did not have the operating capacity to keep up with it, whereas if we had, we would have been able to sell a lot more products. Our projected revenues were higher than our actual in most of the quarters. A lot of the quarters, it didn't really affect us too much, but some of them where our revenues were way higher than the actual, or the projected revenues were way higher than the actual, it did affect us a lot. And we couldn't take advantage of R&D because of a lack of cash flow. That goes back to the budget constraints. If we had been able to research R&D more towards the beginning of the simulation, we would have been able to produce better brands earlier. Some of the other issues we faced, we cannot increase our cost cutter brand's ad copy judgment from quarter to quarter. We basically were stagnant with our cost cutter ad. It stayed around the 70s, and we could never really get it to improve from there. We failed to continually improve our cost cutter products as well. Verizon Pro, we feel we should have improved that again. We were basically just nervous that by trying to improve it, we would have made it worse because we really weren't sure where to go with our cost cutter brand. We failed to create a breakthrough workhorse product. Although the last Stallion products did reach into the 80s, it just really wasn't a breakthrough product that we would hope to have had. And we took too long to create a Traveler product. As I showed before, our Traveler brand got into the 100 rating eventually, but it just took us to quarter 7 to create a Traveler brand. So if we created that earlier, we would have been able to enjoy its profits earlier. And we did not create Innovators or Mercedes products. If we had continued the simulation, that would have been our next steps, but because it took us so long to even create a Traveler product, we just never really got to creating Innovator or Mercedes products. Now that I've gone over some of the issues, Jessica's going to go over how we coped with these issues.
We didn't really begin making any major adjustments to our simulation until around quarter 7. Prior to quarter 7, we just continued to improve on our workhorse brand, and we changed our cost cutter brand twice and also tried to improve ads. In quarter 7, we finally created a Traveler brand, which Joe was talking a little bit about earlier. It did not start off that great, but it ended up being improved. Quarter 8, we finally decreased our advertising budget and focus more on the regional advertising. Every quarter up until quarter 8, we were the team with the highest local advertising, and it wasn't really helping us out profit-wise, so we decided to take some money back and decrease our advertising there. Quarter 9, we finally took advantage of R&D licensing. We exchanged R&D licenses with 2 different teams, and we bought research for 2 separate projects. We also changed our primary target market to Traveler and moved Cost Cutter to 2nd place. Even when Traveler was less profitable, it still had higher profit margins than the Cost Cutter and Workhorse did. In quarter 10, we created the Stallion 4.0 to replace the Stallion 3, which, how Joe was talking about earlier, the Stallion 3.0 was very unsuccessful, and Stallion 2 was actually more successful than 3. And we created the Seagull 3.0, which eventually received a brand judgment rating of 100. Our realized strategy, like I just said, we changed our target markets to Traveler and Cost Cutter. Our old target markets had Cost Cutter as our primary market and Workhorse as our secondary. We decided to focus on markets that had the potential to be highly profitable. Traveler was the most profitable segment for us. We were a fast follower and imitated smart competitive moves. We imitated companies that had high ad copy judgments as long as high brand ratings, and we also not only imitated them, but we tried to improve on our brands. And we weren't afraid to attack the competition. Sabre, Orion, and GatorTec were in the top 4 at all times, and even when we didn't have as much money, we decided to go after what they were doing and try and be as good of a company as them. Sorry about that. We also realized that we could be the market share leader. We held the highest market share in Cost Cutter for 3 consecutive segments, and like we stated, we had the highest market share in Traveler at the end of quarter 10, as well as the highest overall market share at the end of quarter 10. Prior to quarter 10, GatorTec had the highest market share in all the previous quarters, and we finally beat them with market share of 24%, and they dropped to market share of 23%. Some things that we learned is that we shouldn't be afraid to borrow. In the beginning, when we didn't have as much money, we should have borrowed money, enabling us to purchase more R&D projects. Also, quick expansion equals a strong finish. The more cities we expanded into and the more salespeople we hired, the better we did. Also, continual adjustments are needed to keep up with market demand. We should have improved our Cost Cutter more than twice. The Horizon Pro ended with a very low rating, and if we would just put money into improving it, we could have probably made a higher revenue on it. R&D is extremely important for developing strong brands. We didn't really take a hold of the R&D available to us until later in the game. And also, too many characteristics in an ad can decrease its judgment. We also should have increased our operating capacity to keep up with our demand. One of the main problems was that we did not have enough money, going back to borrowing money to increase things that would help our team do better. We also wanted incremental payments for research and quality to change our improvements are essential. We put a little bit of money every quarter into it, helping us get to one of the highest teams in quality and changeover. And also, we learned not to just copy competitors, but to improve on their products. We would now like to open the floor to any questions.